Okay, so I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is what we are going to start today. We have a very elaborate syllabus on interference. Okay. If you would have had normal classes, then you would see that we have all your experiments that are there in your syllabus are also related to this. So, so basically, this is something that we're going to do in some detail, and there are experiments related to the phenomena of interference that we are going to do elaborately, and mathematically the process of interference is something we are going to analyze. Okay, so please pay attention. It's a very basic thing related to physical optics. One of the phenomena that are thought to be simplest, but uh, if there is a flaw in your understanding, then then that flaw remains very basic. So don't keep any gaps in your understanding of the phenomena. So as I am trying to explain these things to you through these PPT slides, if you have any questions or doubts that come into your mind, don't hesitate to unmute yourself and ask me the question, or tell me your confusion so that we can discuss and clear it. Because these are things, you won't believe me that when I went to appeared for the interview of College Service Commission, which was almost 10 years after I completed my graduation. I was asked, of course, the interview board, they asked me what subject I would like to teach in an undergraduate course. And well, somehow I had got news that most people are saying quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics is a subject that physics students usually like. So, and there's a lot to explore in quantum mechanics, a very vast topic which we explored, and it's something new that we get introduced to. When we were doing physics honors, we were introduced to quantum mechanics only in our third year, and then we did a lot of quantum mechanics following that throughout our master degree. So it's something that most physics students are interested in, and which most physics students explore a lot. But I had somehow got news that that particular interview board were sort of getting bored, because most of the candidates were saying quantum mechanics as the subject that they would like to teach. So what I did was, when they asked me what subject would I like to teach in the undergraduate level, I told them physical optics perhaps. And believe me or not, they asked me questions from what I am going to teach you today. Okay, and of course, when you are appearing for an interview, of course I'm not saying that all of you are going to sit for College Service Commission, but at least some of you have in your mind that you will pursue physics, and when you pursue physics as your career, at some point of time or the other you will have to teach undergraduate level, as a research assistant or as a faculty, either in the country or outside somewhere. So these are the basic things that will be asked, and it is not possible to, you know, if you are sitting for an interview for a faculty position 10 years after you have passed college, it is not possible. Physics is such a vast subject that it is not possible for someone to go through everything related to physics uh, to appear for an interview. Okay, So so when the questions are asked from things as basic as this, then it is from your basic concepts that you answer, not from what you studied the night previous night of the interview. Okay, so this is my personal experience. I was asked questions from this portion in my job interview. So I'm trying to I told you this because I want to emphasize the importance of the basicness of this part of the syllabus. All right, okay, so let's go ahead. Interference part 1 and part 2 we will have, because we will be studying two kinds of interference. Okay. So I start with this statement made by Max Born. You will learn more about Max Born when we do quantum mechanics. What Max Born said was that light added to light need not always produce more light. Okay. Now, in general, when we have, uh, suppose we are in a room, and although these days most of the rooms have false ceiling and therefore spotlights, multiple spotlights, mostly urban rooms at least, but just for the sake of simplicity, suppose you are in a room where there is one 60-watt bulb and one tube light and say one LED bulb. Okay, and suppose the 60-watt bulb is on. Now if I come and tell you roomটা অন্ধকার লাগছে, I have to light দরকার, then what is the natural tendency? What will you do? Yes, এই তোমরা শুনছো না আমার কথা? কেউ উত্তর দিচ্ছে না কোয়েশ্চেনের।
হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম, আর একটা লাইট জ্বালিয়ে রাখবো।
একটা লাইট জ্বালিয়ে দেবে।
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, তাহলে কি করবে? আর একটা লাইট জ্বালিয়ে দেবে, তাই তো? তাহলে when we see that there is the light is dim in a place, then if there is provision, what do? We switch on another light so that it is brighter. So in general, we have this concept that when we light two or more, when we switch on two or more sources of light together, then there will be more light. But Max Born says here that light added to light need not always produce more light. Okay, so this is sort of a blow to our very basic concept, that we had this idea till now that when we switch on two or more sources of light together, then the more the number of sources of light are switched on, more is the amount of brightness in the room. But here is a statement that says that it is not always so. It is not always the case that light, two sources of light or light added to light, two sources of light means the light of one source has added to it the light from the second source. But this says that it is not always true that it will always produce more light. So this is exactly what we are going to explore when we are going to study the phenomenon of interference in detail. Now the first thing, that there are two concepts that we had already gone through in our last module, which is, the first one is Huygens principle and the second one is the concept of wavefront. The third thing that we need to know is the principle of superposition. Now all of you have done the principle of superposition somewhere or the other, be it in doing vectors or in electrostatics, waves. Okay, so we know you all have a fair concept of the principle of superposition. Now what is the theoretical definition or the statement of the principle of superposition? It says that the resultant displacement produced at a point by a number of waves, so I am talking in terms of waves, is the vector sum or algebraic sum of the displacements produced by each of them individually. Okay, resultant displacement produced at a point by a number of waves is the algebraic sum of the displacements produced by each of them individually. So it's the same as what we have done when we did principle of superposition related to forces, for example. So what does it say? What did it say? That if there is one force acting on a particular body at a particular point of time, say F1, and then there are more forces, say F2 and F3, etc., acting on the same body at the same point of time, then the resultant force that acts on the body is the vector sum of all these forces that act on the body simultaneously. Right? This is the principle of superposition. Only now we are stating the same principle in terms of the displacement produced by the wave. Okay. So this is a very interesting but very simple way of explaining the principle of superposition. Okay, it's something that is this is the way principle of superposition is explained in um, Feynman lectures. Okay, but I find that this uh, picture, in fact, there is another picture accompanying that I'll show you in a moment. If you get this into your head, then you will never have to learn up what principle of superposition is, and you will never forget what principle of superposition is. Okay, so what am I trying to say? Let us look at this point over here. Okay? So along a straight line, we have one wave moving in this direction towards the right, or let's say towards the positive x direction, and another wave of shorter amplitude moving in the negative x direction. Okay? So as they move towards each other, when they come to this point, they are falling on each other simultaneously. The word simultaneous is very important. So what do we have over here? The amplitudes of both the waves add up. So you can see the dotted lines which show the amplitudes of the individual waves. Okay, so here is the amplitude of the wave that is moving towards the positive x direction. Here is the amplitude of the wave that is moving towards the negative x direction, and so they add up to give a larger amplitude because both of them are on the positive side of the y-axis. So they add up, and we have a what should I say, an amplitude which is greater than each of them. Correct? Now, important is what happens when they cross over, when they pass this point of superposition. See, this wave of smaller amplitude continues its journey in the negative x direction, and this wave of larger amplitude continues its journey in the positive x direction. Whatever happens, happens only at the point where they are simultaneously superposing on each other. Now let us see at the second, look at the second picture. Okay. Now here what is happening? We have two pulses or two waves which are again moving in the positive x direction and the negative x direction respectively, but they have the same amplitude. Okay, the blue wave has an amplitude plus x and the red wave has an amplitude minus x, and their velocities are equal and opposite. Clear? So what is happening when they are falling on each other? That is what is happening at the point of superposition. Can you all see this purple strip of line over here? We said algebraic sum. So plus x plus minus x gives you a 0, and so at this point there is no amplitude at all. The amplitudes of the individual waves cancel each other out at the point of interference. Okay? What happens when they move past this point of interference? The red uh, pulse keeps on moving as it was before with the velocity v, and the blue pulse over here keeps on moving as it was before with the velocity v. So nothing happens once they cross the point of interference. Whatever effect they have on each other is at the point of simultaneous existence. If they have the same sign, they add up to give a larger amplitude. If they have opposite sign, they will there will be the difference. So if this was instead of x and minus x, if this would have been say x1 and minus x2, then the result would have been x1 minus x2. So we would have gotten a pulse of smaller amplitude than either of these, either in the positive, on the top side or on the bottom side. Since they are of the same amplitude but opposite sign, they cancel each other out. The non-existence of any pulse at this point does not mean that there is no wave over here. In fact, two pulses, these two amplitudes, are simultaneously present over here, but we cannot see them because they are nullifying each other. Okay. And another important point is that this effect that the waves have on each other are only at the point of superposition, not anywhere else. Once they pass the point of superposition, they move along as they were before the point of superposition, so that you will not even understand. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that if, for example, if you are starting your observation here, okay, or say at t equal to 2, you will have no knowledge of what has happened at t equal to 1. You will have no knowledge of whether there has been superposition of the two waves before at a point of time before this. If you start your observation here, if you look at the waves here, you will just see two waves, two pulses, one moving in the negative x direction, one moving in the positive x direction. You will have no knowledge of what happened here. Okay? So qualitatively, have I been able to make you understand what exactly superposition is? If you have any doubt, then please tell me now. Now is the time that you should tell me. ক্লিয়ার হলো না, কি বললে?
একটা কোয়েশ্চেন আছে
হ্যাঁ বলো।
ম্যাম, বলছি যে লেফটের যে আপনি পিকচারটা দেখেছেন, ঠিক আছে, ওখানে যে সুপার পজিশনটা দেখাচ্ছেন, তো ওখানে ডটেড লাইনের সিগনিফিকেন্সটা
তোমার না নেটওয়ার্কে কিছু একটা ইস্যু আছে, কেটে কেটে যাচ্ছে। আর একবার বলো, ডটেড লাইনটা আছে না নেই বলছো?
ডটেড লাইনটার সিগনিফিকেন্স
ডটেড লাইনটার সিগনিফিকেন্স হচ্ছে যে আর দেয়ার, মানে এক্সিস্টিং, this is the wave that is moving in the these are not of different colors hole সুবিধা হতো. So this is the wave moving in the direction of positive x, this is the wave moving in the direction of negative x, but এই particular position এ ওদের কোনো existence আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি না. They have lost their identity and given rise to the resultant disturbance or pulse, which has an amplitude which is the algebraic sum of their individual amplitude. So what is significance হচ্ছে এটাই, মানে just to make you understand that it's not that they are not there, they are very much there, but they have lost their individual identities. and the third picture is to show you, এখানেও আমি আঁকতে পারতাম ডটেড লাইন দিয়ে, এটা এখানে আছে, এটা এখানে আছে, কিন্তু they have lost their individual identities. They have just at this point of superposition, what we see is just the result of superposition. And the third picture is to show you that although they lose their identity at the point of superposition, but that does not change them, that does not alter them. Moment they are past the point of superposition, they continue their journey with their original identities. Okay, so this is almost like হ্যাঁ বলো, কিছু বলছিলে? তোমার কথা একদমই কেটে যাচ্ছে, আমি কিছুই শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। তুমি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে লিখে দাও তো তোমার কোয়েশ্চেনটা, আমার ফোনটা আমার পাশেই আছে, কোয়েশ্চেনটা তুমি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে লিখে দাও। Okay, so you understood it. Okay, great. Okay, মানে এটা অনেকটা আমি জাস্ট একটা খুব নাইভ একটা এক্সাম্পল দিই। ধরো আমরা থিয়েটার দেখতে গেছি, থিয়েটার দেখতে গেছি। I hope all of you have seen some theater or the other at some point of time. স্কুলে হোক, কোনো ডান্স পারফরমেন্স হোক, কোনো এমনি নাটক হোক, সেখানে তুমি অ্যাক্টরদের, ধরো তুমি গ্রিন রুম মানে জানো তো, যেখানে ওরা গিয়ে ড্রেস চেঞ্জ করে, মেকআপ করে, ঠিক আছে? আমি কিন্তু মুভির কথা বলছি না। মুভিতে মোস্টলি আমরা অ্যাক্টরদের দেখে তাদের চিনতে পারি, মানে শাহরুখ খান যাই সাজুক না কেন, তুমি সিনেমা দেখে বলতে পারবে আরে এটা তো শাহরুখ খান। হ্যাঁ, অনুষ্কা শর্মা যাই সাজুক না কেন, সিনেমা দেখে আমরা মোস্টলি মানে একদমই দেখে চিনতেই পারলাম না, পরে জানলাম ওই রোলটা তো অনুষ্কা শর্মা করেছিল। এটা খুব রেয়ার অকেশন সিনেমা। কিন্তু আমি এই জন্য থিয়েটার কথাটা বললাম, হ্যাঁ নাটক কথাটা বললাম, কারণ নাটকের লোকেরা মেকআপ করে যে ক্যারেক্টারগুলো করতে যায় অলমোস্ট, অ্যান্ড দেয়ার অ্যাক্টিং ইজ সো গুড যে দে আর অলমোস্ট নন আইডেন্টিফাইবল অন স্টেজ, unless he or she is a very very famous actor like probably Shoboshachi or Dekshankar Haldar or something. তো আমি যেটা বলতে চাইছি যে ধরো তুমি গ্রিন রুমে ঢোকার আগে একজন অ্যাক্টরকে দেখলে, ঠিক আছে, আর তারপরে গ্রিন রুম থেকে মেকআপ করে সে নাটক করলো, করে তারপরে সেই গ্রিন রুম থেকে বেরোলো আফটার দ্য শো, তখন দেখলে। সো দেয়ার ইজ নো এফেক্ট অফ দ্য performance itself on the appearance of that person after the show. আগে যেরকম ছিল পরে সেরকমই আছে। মাঝখানে when he was doing the show, সেই সময়টুকু শুধু he was in a different character, কিন্তু সেই চেঞ্জটা ঠিক ওই সময়টুকুতেই জন্যই ছিল। তারপরে যখন হয়ে গেল, he takes off his costume, he washes off his makeup, and when he comes out of the green room after the show, he is the same as he was before. Okay, so this is sort of a very very naive metaphor to explain what happens in principle of superposition. Okay, তোমরা লিখেছো অনেকেই ব্যাড ওয়েদারের জন্য নেটওয়ার্ক ইস্যুস হচ্ছে। Anyway, I will upload this entire recording onto YouTube so that you can watch later if you are having some difficulties now, and the PPT file will also be there in the LMS, and you have requested to send it in the WhatsApp group, which I'll also try and do today. Okay, so let's move on now. I hope principle of superposition is cleared, and not clear just for now, but this will stay with you forever. I hope যে এই দুটো ছবি দেখে যদি প্রিন্সিপাল অফ সুপারপজিশন বুঝে থাকো, অফকোর্স পরে নিজেরা পড়লে আরেকটু ক্লিয়ার হবে, তাহলে প্রিন্সিপাল অফ সুপারপজিশন অ্যাটলিস্ট আর কোনোদিন জীবনে ভুলবে না। Mathematically now, let us suppose that displacement produced at a point by a wave psi1 is y1 and displacement produced at the same point P by another wave psi2 is y2. So when psi1 wave is moving through a region, it produces a displacement y1 at a point P, and when another wave psi2 is moving through the same point P at the same time. So as I'm telling you, the simultaneous word is very important. Then it produces a displacement y2. So principle of superposition says that when they both act simultaneously at the point P, the resultant displacement will be y equal to y1 plus minus y2. So algebraic sum of the individual displacements. We are going to use this several times when we try to analyze interference. Okay. Next, we want to see what is the relation between the amplitude of a wave and its intensity. Okay, why is this important again? This is important. Okay, principle of superposition was important because we are going to study phenomena where we will always see that there is some interaction of light coming from different sources or different slits. Okay, so there is always an interaction between two or more light waves. So we need to know what happens when two or more light waves are falling at a point on the screen at the same time. So for that we need to know principle of superposition. Next, why do we need to know how amplitude and intensity are related? Okay, let's see what the relation is, and then I'll say why we need to know this. In physics, usually never go through a subject without asking the question why. When you are reading something, okay, keep the question why in mind. Why am I reading this? Why do I need to do this? You will definitely find a logical reason behind the existence of a particular part at a particular point in your syllabus. Okay, so it all builds up to the final thing that you are going to do in a particular module. That is usually the case in physics. So whatever we are discussing now are, you will see that they are all leading us to in a particular direction. Okay, yes, so here I have already given the answer. What we observe on the screen is the intensity or the absence thereof. So we must know how to measure the same. Okay, so when you are observing, for example, interference patterns on a screen, for example, suppose you have done the Young's double slit interference. So from the qualitative discussion that you have already done in your +2 physics, what do we see on the screen? Alternate dark and bright lines. Now bright lines mean high intensity and dark lines mean low intensity. So whenever we are experimentally observing some optical phenomena involving visible light, we must remember that what we observe on the screen, whether it is a dark patch or it is a bright patch of light, with whatever pattern it is, whether it is a shadow or whether it is light, we are actually looking at the intensity. Okay, a bright patch of light means high intensity and a dark patch of light means no intensity, which is rare, very low intensity, which is mostly the case. So as I told you, we observe on the screen the intensity or the absence of intensity. So we must know how to measure the intensity. So in order to mathematically analyze the result that we are observing on the screen, bright and dark patches, we must know how to mathematically represent the bright and dark patches. Clear? What is intensity? What is the definition of intensity? the amount of energy that flows per second across unit area perpendicular to the direction in which the wave travels. Okay, this is the definition of intensity. Intensity of any kind, not only related to light. Intensity of any kind, whether they are sound waves, light waves, whatever kind of waves, whether they are lines of force, whether they are particles moving through a certain region. Okay, uh, intensity is this, the amount of energy that flows per second per unit area when the area is perpendicular to the direction in which the wave travels. Okay. So the disturbance is this, psi equal to a sine kx minus omega t, and remember we had derived this expression of the wave in our first class of preliminary concepts of light as an electromagnetic wave. So nothing here is thing that you have not learned earlier. So the velocity, you just take, this is the disturbance that produces a displacement in a particle of the medium. Then what is the velocity? You simply take the time derivative of it. So d psi dt is a omega cos kx minus omega t. So what will be the maximum velocity that is possible when cos kx minus omega t is plus 1? So maximum velocity is a omega. So what is the maximum kinetic energy? Half into m into maximum velocity square. So half m d psi dt max square. So that is half m omega square a square. Okay. Now, from our knowledge of simple harmonic motion, we know that the total energy at any instant is also half m omega square a square. Right? So the energy density is of the order of a square omega square. Right? We know that when a particle is undergoing simple harmonic motion, if you add up potential and kinetic energy at any one point of time, then the total energy is always this. It adds up to this. It's a constant. So the value of the energy density is proportional to this quantity here, a square omega square. Therefore, what we find is that intensity, and we said that energy density is the intensity is the amount of energy, blah 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 this. So it's basically energy density. So we see that intensity is proportional to square of the amplitude. Okay, why is this important? It is important because if you know the amplitude of the disturbance at the different points on the screen, then you can relate that to the intensity of the pattern at those points. Okay, so which is why we need to know this relation. So if you are able to find out the value of the disturbance mathematically at the point on the screen using the principle of superposition and this mathematical form of the wave, then the next task is to find out, to identify the amplitude, square it, and you get the corresponding intensity. Okay. So now we are at a position where we will now start directly going into the topic of interference. All this that we were doing so long were steps that are leading us to this topic, right from the concept of wavefront. So we have a concept of wavefront now. First of all, we started off by saying that light is a form of electromagnetic wave, and the takeaway from that particular lecture was basically this equation. Anywhere that you see this equation, you have to understand that we are representing an electromagnetic wave in the visible region. So it is light. Okay. Next, we have a concept of wavefront. Why do we need the concept of wavefront? Because we have to understand Huygens principles. So we know Huygens principle, and we know, why do we need to know Huygens principles? Because we need to know how to construct wavefronts at different points of time from our knowledge of the wavefront at an earlier instant of time. So using Huygens constructions, we will do that. Then we discuss the principle of superposition. So if there are more than a single wave arriving at a point on the stream simultaneously, we know what to do. We will apply the principle of superposition. Okay, and finally, after applying the principle of superposition, when we get the value of the resultant wave at that point, we will find the amplitude, we will identify the amplitude of the resultant wave and square it to see what the intensity is. If we see that the value, the mathematical value of the intensity that we have obtained is matching with what we are observed, that is, if the intensity is high, we know it is a bright patch on the screen. So if we have observed a bright patch, then it has matched. If the value of the intensity is 0 or very low, we know that we are trying to identify a dark patch on the screen. Okay, so this is the scheme we are going to follow, and that has led us now to go into the actual topic of our discussion, that is interference. Okay, any questions till now?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, so what is interference? Let us see what the formal definition of interference is. This is the more or less the definition of interference that you'll get in any book. I don't remember from which book exactly I have taken this. So when two waves, this is most probably from the book of Jenkins and White. So when two waves having the same frequency travel approximately in the same direction and have a phase difference that remains constant with time, they superpose, producing an intensity pattern that shows maximum energy at certain places and minimum at certain other places. This phenomenon is known as interference. So one more thing that we have already discussed is that the phase difference remains constant. So remember, we discussed coherence in our last class at the fag end of our last class. So this is another thing. They are traveling approximately in the same direction and they have a phase difference that remains constant with time, which in other words mean that the two waves are coherent. Okay, and then they produce an intensity pattern by superposition, which shows maximum value at certain places and minimum value at certain places, and such a phenomenon is what is known as interference. Okay, now the first person to demonstrate this phenomenon of interference, now this phenomena that was observed could never be explained using Newton's corpuscular theory. Okay, because the statement that Born made, that light added to light need not always produce more light, this cannot happen with particles if they are behaving as particles. Okay, so you know, if you, for example, how do I explain this? I mean, if you suppose you have a wall on which, suppose two of you are standing apart from each other, and say you are throwing darts on a wall. Say there is a felt paper stuck on the wall in front of you, and both of you are throwing darts. Dart hoy na, teer, khelna teer hoy. You are throwing those on that wall. Okay, so they will go and hit the wall in front of you. Some will, you know, stick to the wall, some will fall. But it can never happen that if at one point both of you throw two darts together at one point, then one dart will nullify the presence of the other. Two darts are stuck at a point together and you cannot see anything. Okay, so that two, money, how will you explain that? যেরকম ভাবে interference superposition বললাম, algebraic sum So it can be plus or minus, and if the values are equal, magnitudes are equal, then when you are taking the difference, it can be 0 also. But with darts or say bullets or balls, that is material particles, when there are two objects present at one point of time simultaneously, you can never say that they nullify their presence and the resultant is 0. It will always be 2, right? So this phenomena where two light waves are simultaneously falling on each other, yet we are sometimes getting a high value of intensity and sometimes getting a low value of intensity. This can never be explained using corpuscular theory. That is the theory that light is made up of small particles. It can never be explained. Okay. So the phenomenon of interference, although observed earlier, but it was not explained because existing theories did not explain it. The first person who demonstrated this and explained it using Huygens theory of waves was Thomas Young. Okay, so he did this experiment at this during these years 1801, 1802. Okay, this is the first experimental evidence of the wave nature of light, and he was, clever enough to, although Huygens principles were there, and although Grimaldi was a person who had observed diffraction earlier, but still the wave nature of light was not established in the realm of physics. So he was the first person who not only did observe the interference patterns, but also explained them using, that is, he mathematically analyzed the phenomena, and so he established the wave nature of light. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this man, Thomas Young, when we elaborately do his experiment, Young's double slit experiment. So interference basically is of two kinds, and we are going to study both the kinds very elaborately. One is by division of wavefront. Now you know what a wavefront is, and we'll soon see how interference happens by division of wavefront. And the other is by division of amplitude. So when there is an incident wave, the amplitude of the incident wave is divided. How? For example, if you have a wave incident on, if a ray of light is incident on an interface, can someone tell me what happens when a single ray of light is incident on a surface? What can happen to it? Can someone unmute and tell me, একটা ray of light একটা সারফেসের উপর এসে পড়েছে, কি কি ফিনোমেনা আমরা দেখি?
ম্যাডাম রিফ্লেক্টস হবে,
রিফ্লেক্ট হবে, পুরোটাই কি রিফ্লেক্ট হবে? আমি তো বলিনি কি
সারফেসের উপর ডিপেন্ড করছে,
সারফেসের উপর ডিপেন্ড করছে, ঠিক আছে? Usually for most commonly seen surfaces, part of it is reflected and rest of it is transmitted, আর যেটা এতদিন তোমরা বলতে refracted. তাহলে খানিকটা will come back to the medium, to the same medium, and some of it will go to the next medium. Okay, so basically we have a single wave that is incident, and that single wave is being split into two. Now we know that amplitude square is energy. So this single wave, the energy of this single wave is being split into the energy of the reflected wave and the transmitted wave. So basically from a single amplitude, fraction of it is going to the reflected part and fraction of it is going to the transmitted part. So that is how division of amplitude occurs. How this division of amplitude will produce a phenomena like interference, that we'll see when we do interference by division of amplitude. Okay? But first we'll start with interference by division of wave. Okay? Okay. Now the first question that we will, so we are going to elaborate on this now, division of wavefront. Okay, so the first, start by asking a question. why is it difficult to observe interference of light? So now I have been telling you for quite some time repeatedly that when there are two or more light waves superposing on each other at a point, then there may be a bright patch or a dark patch. So we are telling this qualitatively. We will soon see quantitatively or mathematically that this is the case. And as I told you, Max Born's statement that light added to light need not always produce more light. But usually from our daily observation, যেটা দিয়ে আমি শুরু করেছিলাম আমার ক্লাসটা, if you start switching on more and more lights, there are number of sources of light in a room, and if you start switching them on one by one, the brightness of the room will increase, right? For example, if you have two tube lights in your room, or say two LED bulbs in a room, and you have put both of them on, then do you get to see interference patterns on the floor or on the wall? Do you see dark and light patches? We don't see dark and light patches, right? When one bulb was on, we see a particular brightness that is the result of that one bulb. When we switch another bulb, the brightness just increases. But the wave coming from these two bulbs, I mean, of course, in all possibilities they are interfering because there are two sources and two waves, but we do not see dark and light patches. We do not see the interference, correct? However, if you consider sound, then the phenomena of waxing and waning of sound or beats, these are frequently experienced. Whenever you are listening to some musical instrument, whenever you are listening to some concert, when two or more instruments are being played together, then beats is a very commonly observed phenomenon, and you know how to count number of beats. It's just the difference of frequencies, right? So why is it that we do not get to observe interference of light so often, whereas the other kind of wave that we are acquainted with, that is sound wave, there we can see interference, we can observe interference, okay? So this is what I was trying to tell you. So we have two sources, for example, and in front of them, so that we don't get the entire brightness of these sources, we have a cardboard on which we have made two slits, so that a very thin ray comes out. This is in order to single out a few rays of light from these sources, okay? Now you tell me, what will I observe on the screen? I want you to look at this figure and tell me, what will I observe on the screen?
Madam, fringes
dark
তৈরি
and
হবে।
light fringes.
একদমই না। করে দেখো বাড়িতে, এলইডি বাল্ব ইজিলি অ্যাভেলেবল, দুটো এলইডি বাল্ব জ্বালাবে, একটা কার্ডবোর্ড নেবে, তাতে পিন দিয়ে দুটো ফুটো করবে, করে সেই দুটো বাল্বের সামনে রাখবে, সামনে একটা স্ক্রিন রাখবে, দেখবে কোনোদিনও ফ্রিঞ্জ দেখতে পাবে না, কোনোদিনও ফ্রিঞ্জ দেখতে পাবে না। এই কথাটাই তো এতক্ষণ ধরে বলছি, একটা ঘরের মধ্যে তুমি, আমরা তো সবসময় মোর দ্যান ওয়ান সোর্স অফ লাইট জ্বালাই, তাই না? একটা ঘরের মধ্যে, in a classroom, in a hall, on the stage, in our rooms, it's often that we put on two or more sources of light together. Do we get to see fringes? We don't. This is what we'll observe. Just two patches of light opposite to the slits. এই স্লিটের সামনে একটা প্যাচ অফ লাইট দেখতে পাবে, এই স্লিটের সামনে আর একটা প্যাচ অফ লাইট দেখতে পাবে, সিম্পল। স্পটলাইট জ্বললে কি হয়? স্টেজে তো শোজ দেখেছো নিশ্চয়ই কখনো না কখনো, স্টেজে না দেখে থাকলে টিভিতে দেখেছো। ডান্স পারফরমেন্সেস হয়, যে আইপিএল এর সব ইনগরেশন সেরিমনি হয়, স্পটলাইট জ্বলে, যারা গান গায় ডান্স করে তাদের ওপর। তো দুটো স্পটলাইট যখন একসাথে আসে, তখন কি ডার্ক অ্যান্ড ব্রাইট প্যাচেস হয়ে যায় ওখানে? হয়? কেউ দেখেছো? হ্যাঁ না না বলো আমাকে আনমিউট করে।
না।
না, কোনোদিনও হবে না। কেন হবে না সেটা আমি এক্ষুনি বলছি। এটা বলে আজকের ক্লাস শেষ করব। So basically we are claiming that when there is two or more sources of light emitting waves, they should superpose on each other, and the result of the superposition is interference, which means high energy and low energy, which means a variation in the intensity pattern, that is light and dark patches. কিন্তু observe করার সময় দেখছি we see only two separate light patches. Okay, so and this is not only because I am saying, আমি তোমাদের অনেকগুলো এক্সাম্পল দিয়েছি যেখানে তোমরা মানে you have observed this. Okay, so no interference pattern observed. What is the reason? See, we have to understand this reason, we have to go a little deeper than just the source of light. We have to understand why a source of light produces light. What happens in a source of light when it produces light, whatever kind of source it is. Because we are now acquainted with the LED bulbs. Earlier, a few years ago, they were the LED এর আগেই যে বাল্বগুলো বাজারে খুব এলো,
CFL
CFL না না LCD, CFL গ্যাস ছিল কত যার মধ্যে, হ্যাঁ CFL। তার আগে we were used to tube lights, and আরো আগে তোমরা ছোটবেলায় দেখেছো কিনা জানি না, আমরা ছোটবেলায়, আমি যখন খুব ছোট ছিলাম মানে 2-3 বছর বয়স, তখন আমি যে বাড়িটায় থাকতাম সেখানে ডিসি ছিল কারেন্ট। তো তখন ওই টিউবলাইট জ্বলতো আর এই 60 ওয়াটের বাল্ব, এখন বোধহয় আর 60 ওয়াটের বাল্ব পাওয়া যায় না। এলইডি আসার পর 60 ওয়াটের বাল্ব বোধহয় আর বিক্রি হয় না, ল্যাব ছাড়া আর কোথাও ইউজ হয় না, আর অঙ্কের বই ছাড়া, মানে ফিজিক্সের বই ছাড়া আর কোথাও ওয়াটেজের বাল্ব আর ইউজ হয়। Okay, what I am trying to say is, whatever be the source of light, we have to understand what happens inside the source in the atomic level that light is produced. সব কিছুর থেকে তো লাইট বেরোয় না, না? 99% of the objects that we see is because of reflected light. কোনো একটা সোর্স থেকে যেটা থেকে লাইট বেরোয়, সেই লাইটটা ওই অবজেক্টের উপর এসে পড়েছে, ও রিফ্লেক্ট করেছে, সেই জন্য আমরা অবজেক্টটাকে দেখছি। We don't see objects because of the light they emit. We see objects because of the light they reflect. And there are very few objects which are actually sources of light. সবকিছুই যদি সোর্স অফ লাইট হতো তাহলে খুব অসুবিধা হয়ে যেত। কিন্তু তোমার ঘরের চেয়ার, তোমার মোবাইল, তোমার দেওয়ালের ছবি, আলমারি, খাট, বিছানা, এ সবাই যদি লাইট এমিট করতো তাহলে আমাদের খুব একটা অসুবিধা হতো না। So it is good that we see them in reflected light, and that most of the objects under normal temperatures cannot emit light. Okay, so why is light emitted? Light is emitted due to transition of numerous atoms from their excited state to their ground states, or higher excited states to lower excited state. So basically what is happening inside a source of light? We are taking the atoms to a higher excited state, and because the higher excited states are very unstable, the atoms continuously keep coming back to their ground states or lower excited states, and in doing so they emit photons, okay, which basically constitute the light that we see. Now in different sources, the process of taking the atoms to their higher excited state and the process by which they come down to the lower excited states or to their ground states are different. LED তে একরকম ভাবে হয়, টিউব লাইটে আর একরকম ভাবে হয়, 60 পাওয়ারের বাল্বে আর একরকম ভাবে হয়, but the phenomenon is the same. The process is different technically, functionally, but the phenomenon is the same. That is, the result is light comes out. Okay, so atoms come down from higher excited states to lower excited states or ground states and emit light. A difference of energy that is given out in the form of a photon of a particular frequency, and we get to see light. If it is in the visible range, then we see the light. If it does not fall in the visible range, then it falls on some other part beyond the red or violet. Okay, we are for the time being concerned only between red and violet. Now this process, the time taken by this process is 10 to the power minus 9 seconds. খুব ভালোভাবে বোঝার চেষ্টা করবে পুরো ব্যাপারটা স্টেপ বাই স্টেপ যেটা আমি বলবো, হ্যাঁ। This process takes 10 to the power minus 9 seconds. Now optical pulses, একটা optical pulse therefore is of the order of 10 to the power 15 per second. মানে একটা, what does this mean? এই যে একটা অ্যাটমের হায়ার এক্সাইটেড স্টেট থেকে লোয়ার এক্সাইটেড স্টেটে আসতে অ্যাভারেজ 10 টু দি পাওয়ার মাইনাস 9 সেকেন্ড লাগে। তাহলে এক সেকেন্ডে ইউজুয়ালি অফ দি অর্ডার অফ 10 to the power 15 খানা অপটিক্যাল পালস থাকে এক সেকেন্ডে। ইউজুয়ালি একটা সোর্স অফ লাইট ইট এমিটস of the order of 10 to the power 15 pulses. Okay, and such a short pulse which continues for just 1 second, that one single pulse will contain a million oscillations. Okay, so therefore if you have, so when you switch these two separate sources, even if you switch them on simultaneously, প্রথমত simultaneously দুটো সেপারেট সোর্স সুইচ অন করা অসম্ভব। ম্যাক্রোস্কোপিক্যালি দুটো আলাদা সুইচ, আমি যতই বলি না কেন, তুমি যতই তোমার বন্ধুকে বলো না কেন এই একদম ঠিক যে মুহূর্তে আমি সুইচ অন করবো সেই মুহূর্তেই তুই সুইচ অন করবি, কিন্তু যতই সিনক্রোনাইজ করো না কেন একদম সেম পয়েন্ট অফ টাইমে সুইচ অন করা অসম্ভব। ওকে, ইটস ইম্পসিবল। তবুও ধরো অনেক কিছু আমরা অ্যাজিউম করি ফিজিক্সে, আই অ্যাজিউম দ্যাট ইউ হ্যাভ ডিভাইস সাচ আ ভেরি ভেরি সিনক্রোনাস সামথিং সো দ্যাট ইউ হ্যাভ ম্যানেজ টু সুইচ অন দ্য টু সোর্সেস at the same point of time exactly. Even then the waves coming out from this source and the waves coming out from this source will have a constant phase relationship only for 10 to the power minus 9 seconds. কারণ ওই পার্টিকুলার ইনস্ট্যান্টে যে অ্যাটমগুলো জাম্প করেছে from higher excited states to lower excited states, they have taken 10 to the power minus 9 seconds to send out a pulse, and এরও সেম হয়েছে, একই সাথে সুইচ অন করেছে, so they have also sent out a pulse in the time interval 10 to the power minus 9 second. কিন্তু তারপরেই ও যে নেক্সট ওয়েভটা পাঠাবে আর এই যে নেক্সট ওয়েভটা পাঠাবে 10 to the power minus 9 সেকেন্ড পরেই ওদের ফেজটা চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে। ও আর একটা পাঠাচ্ছে, ও আর একটা পাঠাচ্ছে। ওকে, সো দিস ফিক্সড ফেজ রিলেশনশিপ, even if it does exist for two different sources, it will exist for about only 10 to the power minus 9 second. So if they produce an interference pattern because of superposition of the waves that are coming out from these two sources simultaneously, that interference pattern, one pattern would exist for about 10 to the power minus second. So the pattern would vary every billionth of a second. Every billionth of a second there will be a different pattern. Problem is, resolving power of the human eye is only 1/10 of a second. We can distinguish between two phenomena to be separate phenomena only if the time interval between the two is at least 1/10 of a second. 1/10 of a second is যথেষ্ট ছোট কিন্তু, so our human eyes are not you know, bad equipments. They are pretty good, but the resolving power is 1/10 of a second. So it is impossible for the human eye to distinguish patterns that change every 10 to the power minus 9 of a second. Therefore, the interference pattern due to light coming from two separate sources go unobserved. So if someone asks you, there are two separate sources of light. For example, suppose you are going for an entrance exam to an institute and it contains a question like this. This picture is given and the question is, do you observe interference pattern? Okay, and it's a multiple choice question and the two choices are yes or no. What will be your choice? Is
No.
there an of course there is an interference pattern. Of course there is an interference pattern. Interference of course occurs. Yes. But we cannot see it. It is the incapability of the human eye that we cannot see things that are more than 1/10 of a second apart, or rather less than 1/10 of a second apart. If you could design a camera whose resolution is 1/1000th of a second, then you will be able to record the interference produced by two separate sources. If you can design a camera like that. Unfortunately, cameras have resolutions lesser than human eyes. The goal of the camera industry, the more and more sophisticated cameras they manufacture, their ultimate goal is to match the human eye. The human eye is the best camera. Unfortunately, camera industry has not been able to reach human eye, so leave alone go beyond that. It can happen in future. Nothing is impossible. Okay. So please keep this in mind. So if someone asks you that there are two separate sources of light, does interference, so there can be two kinds of questions from this. One is, does interference occur? And two is, can you see interference? So if the question is, can you see interference? The answer is no. If the question is, does interference occur? The answer is yes. And then if you are asked to explain, then you can explain. If the question is, does interference occur? You say yes. And so the next question comes where we can't see it. So next you say this. Interference occurs, but the phase relation between the two waves coming from two separate sources exists for only about 10 to the power minus 9 seconds, because that is the time that an atom takes to go from its higher state to lower state to emit a pulse of light. So even if the two pulses superpose on each other producing a pattern, that pattern will change every billionth of a second and human eye cannot register this pattern. To us, it's just we just see two patches because we don't register the change. On the other hand, if the question is, can you see interference? You say no. And then if the next question comes, why? We have two sources, why can't you see interference? Then the second part of the answer is the same. Have you understood this? এই জায়গাটা কি পরিষ্কার? না হলে আমি কিন্তু আরেকবার বোঝাবো, because this is very important.
Understood, ma'am.
Okay, so please go through the slide once more. In most of the optics books, this is written as a single paragraph, but it is not easy to understand just by reading that paragraph. I tried to explain it as elaborately as possible. You go through this and then you try to think a little bit yourself what I have said, And if you have any doubts, then please do ask me in the next class. But this is a very important concept. Very important concept. This is the basic reason why it took us a lot of time. It took several years to establish the wave nature of light, because people are thinking that if light is a form of wave, because they have already seen interference of sound waves, we can actually see interference of water waves. So if light is a form of wave, then we should also see interference of light waves. But using two separate sources, this interference could not be seen, and the wave nature of light took so long to establish. So it took the intelligence of a man like Thomas Young, who designed his experiment in such a manner that this difficulty was, resolved. Okay. Okay. So to observe a certain sustained interference pattern, the interfering waves must have a constant phase relationship between them over a fairly long interval of time. Okay, which means we must have coherent sources. All right, so I'll end here, and this is where I leave you. Young's experiment overcame this difficulty. How he overcame the difficulty, that detail we'll do in our next class. All right, so this is where I'll end today's class. So just keep in mind what I said. Just go through the slides and try to recall. You can always replay the recording if you want, and try to visualize the phenomena yourself. Try to visualize what is happening inside the source of light, how the atom is coming to the ground state, therefore emitting a pulse of light, a photon or several photons, but the very less amount of time that it is taking, and therefore when two sources are on together, even if you put them on switch them on simultaneously, the constant phase between them will be disrupted only after 10 to the power minus 9 seconds. Therefore, we have a pattern, but that pattern changes every billionth of a second, and therefore we can't see it. Okay, so not that it doesn't exist, but that we can't see it. Okay, so everything that doesn't exist doesn't mean that it's not there. We observe things, and it's the same like it's very much like matter waves. When you will study quantum theory, we'll see that we'll talk about matter waves. So de Broglie hypothesis a little bit, I think. It's there in the high secondary syllabus now. So he said that every object that is moving has with it a wave. So the next question comes, we cannot see that wave. When you throw a ball which is moving very fast, say a fast bowler, I don't know who the fastest bowler is nowadays. I've stopped watching cricket since IPL started. So I was a very ardent cricket fan before that. So you might call me old, but it's like that. So a very fastest bowler throwing a ball. So you'll say that's moving very fast. Why can't we see the de Broglie wave associated with it? Okay. So again, the wave is very much there. We can't see it because the wavelength is too small. So we tend to relate things to what we observe. Okay. But just because we can't see something doesn't mean they are not there. Bats can hear ultrasonic sounds. We can't. Does it mean ultrasonic sounds are not there? They are very much there. Our ears, our nervous system has made the ears such that they can't receive sounds beyond a certain frequency. We can't see light beyond violet and red. Does that mean ultraviolet and infrared and all the other wavelengths they don't exist? Very much exist. We can't see them, but now we know other phenomena through which we can feel their presence. Communication waves, we need them all the time. So this is the way you should, learn science, not just learn up how to derive and do problems. You must go a little deep. For example, okay, so let's stop here the recording.